Hello, everyone. My name is Jimmy Salyers, and I'm on the board of directors for the Kentucky NASW as the Eastern Branch Chair. I represent 16 counties in Eastern Kentucky, and I'm also the chairman of the Legislative and Advocacy Committee. Now, what we're doing here today is we are going to have a conversation between the Kentucky NASW and the ACLU of Kentucky. We're going to learn a little bit about advocacy and the importance of it, as well as the history of the ACLU and some of the things that they're working on as well. And then at the end of it, hopefully we can learn how we as social workers in Kentucky better participate in policy and advocacy and help to overall empower the clients and the individuals that we serve. So we're going to take a little bit of time right now, and I'm going to allow Amanda Inkster to introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Couture Heron, and I'm a policy strategist at the ACLU of Kentucky. And most of the work that I've done historically has been work that impacts young people who are impacted by social services, juvenile justice, and the adult system. And most recently, my work has started to shift a little bit to do more around policing and more racial justice work in the killing and the murder of Breonna Taylor. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name's Amanda Hall and I'm a policy strategist at the ACLU of Kentucky as well. My work primarily has focused on the criminal legal system and drivers of incarceration. So along with looking at criminal justice reforms, looking at things such as mental health and substance use disorder, and other factors that we see as drivers into the carceral system, and also ways that keep folks in that cycle of incarceration and how to change that.
Thank you both for actually agreeing to participate in this conversation. I think this is one of the more important things that we need to do as far as organizations and agencies. We need to come together and collaborate to help better enrich the lives of Kentucky. I know myself personally, I got started in the policy work through the Kentucky NASW during my bachelor's of social work. I did a clinical with Brenda Rosen, and she's the executive director of the Kentucky NASW. And she really taught me a whole lot about, policy and why it's important for social workers to actually be involved. If you guys don't mind, would you actually share a little bit about how you guys started with the ACLU and what really kind of pushed you to get into that?
Sure. I guess we'll take turns going first. But so I am formerly incarcerated and suffered from a substance use disorder for years. After prison, I was able to receive community-based treatment and then was able to start my journey in recovery. After that, I was also a program director of a women's recovery program, and also for a while a program director of an overnight women's shelter, along with the detox center. So I love direct service. It really meant a lot to me, but what I saw was that so often the clients that I worked with were affected by these policies. So I found myself telling individuals to, work on your recovery, do all these things, and life would get better. And for some it did, but for so many others, there were these policies, for folks that had felony convictions on their records. There were policies around folks not being able to regain custody of their children or to find meaningful employment or housing, or going back to communities where there weren't these resources. So there came a point when, I had to understand how these policies affected the folks that I cared about so much. So there happened to be, a job open up at the ACLU of Kentucky, and it said on the application that folks with personal experience with the criminal justice system should strongly apply. So I'd never seen anything like that. And I thought, well, that's the job for me, because I have that experience. I want to change that policy, and jumped in it, not knowing much. So right now, if you don't know a whole lot about policy, just jump in there, and you'll learn. So that's how I came to the ACLU of Kentucky.
Yeah, and so I have spent most of my time working with young people in community. I've worked in a juvenile detention center. I've worked inside schools here in Louisville, in Lexington, Richmond, and in a couple of different other states that I've worked. And so, similar to Amanda, working directly with folks, I realized that I could do something for a young person and the family. And then a couple of weeks later, they were coming back and needing the same things. And so it really got me thinking about how our policies and practices impact families, but really didn't, at that point, really didn't get, really deep into the policy piece. And someone who myself, I'm directly impacted by the justice system. I have several family members who have been impacted by the justice system. And I actually had a cousin who had substance abuse issues, and she had 2 kids, and she ended up in federal penitentiary due to behaviors from her substance abuse issues. And so I ended up taking custody of 2 of my cousins. I was very young and was basically taking care of 2 teenagers. And it was a lot, and it just made me understand and think about the totality of what it means and what families are really facing. And there was a moment that I shared my story publicly in Louisville, and Amanda and I believe that Kate, our supervisor, just happened to be there at that event. And after the event, Amanda and I spoke, and we ended up doing another meeting. And so I started doing some volunteer work with ACLU. And then Amanda was like, "We've got to get you hired. You got to come work for us." And so that's really how I was introduced to ACLU. But as far as this policy piece, it just, what has been so impactful for me and is that understanding that a lot of times we may think that something sounds good in theory, that, oh, we should do this and families should have to do this. But in practice, a lot of times those things don't work. And so I started to see that in practice, those policies that were in place, whether it was the state level policies or policies within organizations or programs, that oftentimes they really don't work, and we have to really change those. And so that's what really got me interested in really, what is a policy? How do we change policies? And with the help of Amanda, I've been doing it ever since.
Well, thank you both for sharing that. I think honestly, anybody who deals with, individuals or work with juveniles or work with the formerly incarcerated, most of us usually have a pretty personal connection to that. And I think one thing that we often overlook is that policy dictates everything that we can and cannot do with an individual when we're trying to provide them services. The main reason why I even decided to go towards macro social work was a lot of issues with administrative dilemmas, basically. I would be in practice as a substance abuse counselor, and much like Katura just said, I would see policies that restricted a lot of things that I could do with the clients. And I started asking the question, how do I change that? How can I make it to where it would work better for the clients? Because at the end of the day, the job of a social worker is to empower the client. We're there to work ourselves out of a job, basically. We want the client to be able to stand up on their own 2 feet and live a perfectly healthy, happy life. So policy really speaks to me personally because, I'm also, impacted by the criminal justice system, and I have suffered from substance use disorders. I served in the United States Army for 8 years and have developed mental health issues because of that as well. Now, I remember the first time I met you two, I actually was in Frankfurt doing my, internship with the Kentucky NASW, and God love Brenda. She likes to, push people into things, which I love that. But one of the things that you guys first introduced to me was the Star Justice Advocates meeting, and the Facebook group. And when we were in Frankfurt and talking about it, that really got me interested in, okay, so even though I am just one person from Eastern Kentucky, I can really make an impact and difference in the way that policies are made. So if you guys don't mind, could you kind of talk a little bit about the Star Justice Advocacy and, explain what that actually is and what all it does?
Yeah, so our Smart Justice Advocates are a group of folks who have been directly impacted by the justice system, or been formerly incarcerated, parents or family members who have been impacted. And basically what we do is we come together and we build community. We talk about different issues that folks are seeing in their communities or their experiences while they were incarcerated. And what we do is with that is that we take that energy, take that knowledge, and we change policy at the state level. And so we've been, I guess it's been 3 years now, 2.5, 3 years now that we've been doing it. And so most of the policy, I would actually probably say all of the policy that you see ACLU doing when it comes to the legal system is informed by our Smart Justice Advocates. We believe that the people who are closest to the problem have the best solutions. We also believe that they have to be at the table to help change what it means, what services mean, and just get folks involved. And we think that it's important because we have those personal experiences. And the other thing is that when you're talking to our elected officials or lawmakers, a lot of times they just don't know. And I think that can be one of the scary pieces of talking to lawmakers. It's like they're these people that we envision, but at the end of the day, sometimes they just don't know because they haven't had the experience. We believe it's our job to inform them the best way through personal experiences and personal stories.
I mean, I think Katora covered it really well. And Katora has been there, co-created, started Smart Justice Advocates. She wasn't even working for the ACLU yet. Like I said, a volunteer. And I mean, anybody that meets Katora Heron, I mean, obviously you all already know why I wanted her to work with me so much. But anyway, she covered that question great. And we would love for more folks to be involved with Smart Justice Advocates. It's truly one of the best parts of being involved and getting to work at the ACLU of Kentucky is that powerful, amazing group.
So if an individual wanted to actually start participating with the Smart Justice Advocates, how would they get in contact with you all to actually start that?
Absolutely. So now we've added another great individual, a few of them, to our team. Marcus Jackson is now in charge of coordinating and organizing the Smart Justice Advocates. So there would always be a chance to email him to get in contact. And Jimmy, I'll make sure that you have that information in his email. And also on the ACLU of Kentucky website, there is a page dedicated just to the Smart Justice Advocates. So at ACLU of Kentucky, Smart Justice Advocates, you can go to that page. There's a short documentary to see folks in action, to see them meeting with legislators, to see some of the prep work around those meetings and how we delve into bills. And then there's also on that page an events tab where you can go and sign up to attend one of the virtual meetings. No prep required, come as you are. COVID has changed a lot of things. All of our meetings used to be in person, but what's been interesting about COVID, because they are virtual, we've been able to get a lot more folks from around the states and different parts. So please come. The more folks, the better. we really think it's important to have all of those diverse voices and to participate. So I'll make sure, Jimmy, that you have the link to that page so folks can come on and join.
Yeah, thank you for that, Amanda. So, you guys really raise a good point. The lawmakers and the representatives that are in Frankfort, yes, it can be extremely scary to actually walk into their office and talk to them, or even set up a Zoom meeting to discuss these issues. I think one of the main things that I'm kind of hearing here is, in social work, we have this term called practice informed research. And basically what that does is, the people that are actually out here on the street performing the services, the people that are impacted by, the way the policies are made, it's their voices that allow us to actually figure out what it is we need to change. And I think what happens a lot of times is that our policymakers in Frankfort, like Atura said, they may not even know that the problem exists. And it takes people like us social workers, people who work with the ACLU, people who work with the Kentucky Center for Economic Justice. We have to be that voice for people. One of the main things that I've learned is bipartisanship. That's probably been the most difficult thing for me in Frankfort to learn, but I feel like I'm learning that skill. So speaking of Frankfort, I know there is a lot of stuff going through the General Assembly right now. One of the things that we do with the Legislative and Advocacy Committee is we actually have a Google Drive that keeps up with priority bills. And, there's over 300 of them at least that, would really impact the way that we as Kentuckians provide services and how it impacts our, general population. So I know that with the ACLU, you guys focus on such things like juvenile justice, community substance use disorder bills, Breonna's Law, the restoration of voter rights, and the Key Scholarship Bill. Would you guys mind actually sharing a little bit more about that and talking about kind of what the process is in order to actually advocate and lobby in Frankfort for those things?
Yeah, so you named a lot of our priority bills. I think that we probably have a long list of bills, but Breonna's Law is a law that would ban no-knock warrants across the state. That's filed by Representative Scott. I think it's House Bill 21. Then we also have a restoration of voting rights bill that would ensure that when folks do their time, even though they have a felony conviction, that they would be eligible to vote after they get out of our jails or prisons, despite the felony conviction. We have a juvenile justice bill, Senate Bill 36. And what that bill does is currently right now, there's some charges that young people are automatically waived to adult court. And basically what this bill would do, it would say that that it would be under the judicial discretion. So judges and prosecutors would have the discretion to see if that case or that young person needed to go to adult court. Actually, there's like a plethora of other bills, but I'll let Amanda talk about those. But basically, if folks want to get involved, the first step that I would recommend people do is find out who your actual representative is. So who is your senator? Who is your House rep? And you can go to the legislative website to find that out. There's actually a tab that says who's my legislator, and you can actually type in your address and it'll pull it up and let you know. I think that that's the first step to advocacy, is knowing who that person is, who represents you. Elected officials love to hear from their constituents. And so one of the first things that we do at ACLU is whenever we get people to do some type of meeting with a legislator, we usually match them up with the person who represents them. So they can be like, these are the issues that are happening in our community. This is who you represent. And they want to hear from their constituents. And it's really building and bridging that relationship. The other way on our website, we have lobby days. And so we have lobby days broken down with smart justice. We have lobby days with LGBTQ issues, with racial justice issues, with reproductive justice issues. And so folks can go also on our website and click on those particular lobby days. And what we'll do is we'll actually, at ACLU, we'll actually set up those meetings for you. We'll actually prep you for those meetings and see exactly what it is that you want to talk to your legislature about, and make sure you have the information that you need to be very comfortable to have that meeting and make that meeting successful. And one of our goals at the end of those meetings is to make sure that we're able to exchange contact information. So we often will ask the elected officials, is it okay to share, to do some type of email introduction? So that way, whoever that advocate is who is talking and advocating that day, then we want to make sure relationship, so folks don't necessarily have to go through us, that they have that personal relationship and they can continue the advocacy beyond that day. And I'll pitch it over to Amanda to talk about more of our bills.
Yeah, and that was great. And our lobby days are so important to have those folks that live these policies and care about them to really bridge that gap and have them meet their legislatures. So Katora mentioned, like, we have a lot of different issue areas at the ACLU of Kentucky. You know, the ACLU of Kentucky has been around for over 60 years. And then, of course, our national organization has been around for over 100. So we work on things such as abolition of the death penalty, immigrants' rights, justice reform, LGBTQ issues, reproductive freedom, voting rights. So there's a lot of different ways to get involved and a lot of different issues. You know, as Katora mentioned, me and her work a lot on criminal legal issues, juvenile justice, policing, because here in Kentucky, you know, we're number 7 in the nation for folks that are incarcerated, racial disparities within our criminal legal system. Black folks make up 8% of the population, but are over 21% of the folks incarcerated. We know these policies impact folks with severe mental illness, like at astronomical levels, and folks with substance use. We know that women are incarcerated in Kentucky at the 3rd highest rate in the nation. Kids are affected, so I could keep going on. So that's why we focus so much on those issues, but we just want to let folks know if there's other issue areas, like Katora said, I'll make sure that you all have our bill tracker from our webpage, which has that easy link to click on to get involved with lobby days on different issues as well. So Katora hit on a lot of our issues, and Katora didn't mention it, but Katora is truly the person behind Breonna's Law in Louisville. If you all could have seen her, and it was amazing. So please support Breonna's Law in Kentucky. So we're also advocating for Senate Bill 84, which is referred to as the Dignity II bill. My coworker, Jackie McGranahan, has been instrumental in that bill. It's for pregnant folks incarcerated to allow them to access more community-based treatments. It's to ban solitary confinement for pregnant people. It's to have more reporting on solitary confinement, because unfortunately that's really an area we don't have a lot. And we also know that disproportionately people with mental illnesses are more apt to be in solitary confinement. So we really need to have that information more transparent. It also provides social workers for folks after giving birth, incarcerated, and looking at that reunification. So that bill has passed the full Senate with no one voting against it, and it's on to the House. So y'all please support Senate Bill 84. Also, there's House Bill 126, which raises the felony theft threshold. Here in Kentucky, it's $500, which is one of the lowest in the nation. And I already mentioned at our high numbers of folks incarcerated, and we have over 300,000 people with felony convictions on their records. So it's really a point of, what does accountability look like? And is a lifelong felony always the best way to hold someone accountable? I would say no. But this will raise that threshold. We wish it was larger than 1,000, but this bill does raise it to 1,000 because we look at Texas and it's $2,500. So we think justly, we wish it was higher, but 1,000 is a step in the right direction. So support House Bill 126. Also, we have House Bill 25, the Key Scholarship Bill that you mentioned, just to allow folks with felony convictions to access that Key Scholarship. We need to be thinking more about education, less about incarceration. So this bill is very important to us at the ACLU and the Smart Justice Advocates. Also, looking at those drivers of incarceration, there's House Bill 50, the Mental Health Parity Bill, which absolutely affects social workers. This just takes away the fact that insurance can put that quantitative number of treatments for folks with mental health conditions, and it allows parity. This will be a big deal. This bill has passed the House, so please, House Bill 50. There's also bills in both the House and Senate for prior authorization for medicated assisted treatment. And I know Jimmy and I know a bunch of different social workers work with folks with substance use disorder, waiting for days, hours, or weeks. That could be life or death when someone needs this life-saving medication. This makes the third year that we've worked on this bill, so hopefully this is the year that it passes. We have a lot more bills that we're working on. So I'm so glad Katora brought up our webpage. Please go on there and check it out. And I think it will really be cool for your social workers. If you're looking at your bill tracker and ours, I bet there's a lot of things that are in common. We're going to be tracking the same bills because, that code of ethics, and I have a master's degree in social work. I probably should have said that, but that code of ethics and what the ACLU does with civil rights, those go hand in hand together.
Thank you both for that. So like we mentioned before, there is a lot of things going through the General Assembly this year, and year after year, we're here to help try to get actual effective change done in Kentucky. How does Frankfort look like now with the COVID-19 virus? I know that before, whenever I first did my clinicals with the Kentucky NASW, basically, I could walk into Frankfort and go to my representative's office and just talk to them. How is it now with the COVID-19 virus? How do people get involved to where they can actually testify either for or against bills, or how do they actually meet with their representatives?
Is it my turn? Are we doing it? Okay, sorry. So Frankfort looks really different. Like you said, you can't just, me and Katora, you said we met you at the Capitol because that's where we just hung out. We lived there, basically. And now, so most meetings are virtual. So you still have the option, the opportunity to call your legislator and to try to schedule those meetings. That legislative research line is open. There's also opportunities to testify, and all of these things are harder. We have to be realistic. And these are big hurdles and barriers. But to testify, there's also a link on that Legislative Research Commission page. Or if you had a bill that you're very interested in and want to testify, I would just go out and say, you could probably contact us and we would probably help make that happen for you if we're able. But it has hurt in a lot of ways because that interaction with legislators or being there in Frankfort, we're really able to know what's going on. People that are affected by these issues are able to go to committee meetings, have their face being shown. or wear t-shirts to show solidarity, or be in the hallways to talk to their legislators. And unfortunately, that doesn't exist right now. So in no way is this how we wish the legislative process was going on, because we think it's so important that the people are there and are able to represent themselves. So there's so many barriers, so many hurdles. We are trying our best to find fixes and ways to tackle some of those. But yeah, it's been a trying time, and Katora probably has some stuff to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Amanda covered it most, but even for me personally, it's been very difficult. I feel like that I got my best work done in the past 2 sessions of being in the hallways, and um, not knowing, there's a lot of our elected officials that I don't know and don't have personal relationships with. So a lot of times the advocacy work was in between committee meetings. And so you would know that you need to get in touch with a legislator and you haven't been able to get in touch with them, and they're leaving out of a committee hearing. And a lot of my work was finding them after the committee hearing and walking and talking to them to their next meeting. And so it looks very different, and it has definitely caused a lot of barriers. But I definitely think that some folks we are still able to do a great job. However, it has pushed out the general public, which makes it a lot difficult. And so I look forward to the day that we're all able to get back in the Capitol, and be together and be in community. I think for everyone, it's just better that way. And so obviously with COVID-19, this is just where we are. And so I look forward to seeing what next session will look like.
Yeah, I think you two said it best. With this virus, it is both presented extreme challenges for us, but it has also opened up doors that were not existent before. Just like today, we're on a virtual platform and we're able to discuss things. I'm sitting here in Johnson County in Eastern Kentucky, and you two are in Louisville. In the past, these meetings wouldn't have happened. So we definitely have other means to where we can actually contact our people. I know one of the things that we at the Kentucky NASW do, and I know that the ACLU does it as well, is call to actions. Basically, we find a priority bill or something that's, getting ready to go into a committee, and we want our voices heard and we want the people's voices heard. So can you guys talk a little bit about the call to actions and how they actually work?
Yeah, so I mean, call to actions a lot of times is just calling that legislature. For example, let's talk about Breonna's law. Right now, the call to action for Breonna's law is the bill has not been assigned to a committee yet, so we don't know when the bill was going to be heard. And so the call to action for that would be to contact Representative Osborne, who is over the House, to ask him to have Breonna's law heard, House Bill 21. Also, a call to action would be to contact the chairs of judiciary. And so that would be Representative Massey, where we think that Breonna's law would go. And so typically what call to actions are is just, we have some type of issue, and then we'll tell you, like, we need you to do this to make it happen. Also, one thing that we did just last night at ACLU was that we created a frame, a picture frame. And so if you go to ACLU's Facebook page, you'll see a frame that you can put around your profile picture that will that has some wording and language around it to say support Breonna's law. So another call to action that I would encourage you all to do is find that frame on social media and make that a part of your profile picture.
Absolutely. And to echo what Katora said about those calls to action, I think that maybe folks might not know how powerful those could be, especially when you call your legislator, but they actually get these slips that lets them know how many constituents call them about a specific issue. And that will push them often to take some action. So you'll even see in on the House floor or the Senate, the legislators will be holding their slips that say their constituents called them, and they'll say, I've had X amount of my constituents call and tell me to support this bill or to oppose this bill. And they actually often will have an impact. So that's really important. And to be able to a call to action, not just with your legislators, but with your circle, like the people that you know, like Couture said, things like a frame to show that you support a bill, or educating your family or your friends about how important issues are and policies that matter. So there's a bunch of different calls to action. I can tell you that each one of them are important, and it's the opportunity, to stand up for something that impacts Kentuckians in a positive way.
Yeah, I'm actually glad that you guys mentioned the slips that the legislators get, because I think we as social workers, especially newer social workers like myself, I'm still finishing my MSW at the University of Kentucky. And, one of the things that I think about is, okay, well, why does my voice matter? Or will the legislator even care for one person calling? And one of the things I learned is, if they get, say, 10 calls from their constituent, they consider that a hot issue, and they will actually start to really focus in on what it is that those people are calling about. Really, I've enjoyed talking to you both. One of the things that I kind of want to shift gears with is basically, why is it important for social workers, first off, to be involved in policy? Obviously, there's the ethical obligation there from the NASW Code of Ethics. But, for a social worker who wants to be more involved with policy, can you guys kind of touch on the importance of having kind of like a multidisciplinary set of individuals that are actually in policy work, rather than just, say, like somebody with a political science major?
Yes, it is it's so important for social workers to be involved in policy, because you all do that work. Direct service is so important, and you all see in real time what these policies look like and how they impact your clients. And like you said, we do have a lot of folks in Frankfort that have political sciences degrees, or we have a lot of lawyers. Sometimes it'll be me and Couture and all these lawyers. But me and Couture talk about our direct service experience. We talked about our lived experience, and people say, I never thought about it that way. Or you have a good point. And social workers are on ground zero, on the firing line of these issues. So it really, when those voices aren't heard, when you all don't have that seat at the table or that input, often you will see policies enacted and passed into law that negatively affect the work that you do and the clients you serve. And the only way to combat that and try to prevent that from happening is to have your voices heard, is to tell these legislators and people in power. Like Couture said earlier, it's a perfect example. Policy sounds good in theory, but let me tell you what this really looks like. Let me tell you what this looks like to my client in Johnson County. Let me tell you what this looks like for the youth that I'm serving in Western Kentucky, or how this looks like in the west end of Louisville, or up the holler, at the clinic that I work at. And those voices, we get some of those voices, but y'all, we need so many more. I'm telling you, we need, so, like I said, when we're in rooms and it's just with folks that have never experienced these issues or know hardly anything about them, and they have the power to change law. And then there's me and Couture, like we've literally looked at each other before like, oh my goodness, like somebody needs to come talk to these people. Like they voices need to be heard. So social workers are a perfect subset of people that I think your all's voices matter so much.
Yeah, and I would just like to just lift up just the importance of just because social workers are on the ground and the social workers are dealing with issues in a different type of way than what a lawyer may be dealing with the issues, or prosecutors, or just whatever, teachers. I mean, like social workers are very unique individuals, and it's crazy because before I went back to school, I was deciding, am I going to go to school to be a social worker, or am I going to go back and get a master's in juvenile justice? And I went and got a master's in juvenile justice. If I knew what I knew today, if I knew that back then, I would have went and got my master's in social work. But I think that social workers are so unique because you all can be in so many different fields. You all are needed in so many different fields. You're needed in hospitals. You're needed in the prison setting. You're needed in the community setting. And so I think that social workers bring this unique point of view and viewpoint. And so your voices are needed because, like I said, you're working with the people directly. And again, I would just like to, lift up is that a lot of times the policies that we have, it sounds good in theory, but in practice, that's not the way it goes. And so I think that social workers are doing that hard work, that brunt work. And so your voices are needed, whether it's in what's happening in our education system or our mental health services, medical field. Your voices are needed. And so I encourage you all to get engaged and involved. And it doesn't just have to be at the state level. It can be with your local level. It can be with your local school board. It can be with your local officials, whether it's at the city council level. But I think that social workers do need to be involved at that decision-making level to make sure that our communities continue to get the things that they need.
Thank you both for that. I think the centralized theme is, we as social workers in Kentucky, we need to do three things. We need to get up, we need to get out, and we need to speak up. We as social workers, like Katura said so beautifully, we are involved in the day-to-day life of every aspect, whether it's, like myself treating somebody with substance use disorders, whether it's the LCSW who is, giving private practice mental health counseling, whether it's the social worker in the prison system that's trying to help, reintroduce the individual to society, because obviously there are a lot of barriers to these things. There's a lot of stigma that goes along with it. And I really like the fact that you guys bring up the point that, policy looks good on paper, but it affects us negatively sometimes whenever we're actually in practice. And without our voices standing up and being heard, there won't be any change. I remember my very first social work lobby day in Frankfurt. There were over 400 social workers there, and the governor, Andy Bashir, he was there. And basically all of these things were happening all at once, but in the same aspect, you had thousands of teachers flooding the Capitol because they weren't being treated right and they wanted their voices to be heard, and they were able to actually have policies enacted. It's the same thing that we as social workers with the Kentucky NASW do. It's the same thing with ACLU. One final thing that I would like to leave with the social workers in Kentucky is, yes, policy can be scary. Yes, speaking up and telling legislators that you think some of the policies are wrong can make your heart beat out of your chest. I know the first time I ever testified against a House bill, I felt like I was going to, end up throwing up in my mouth, but I didn't. And then when I did finally start speaking, it's just like this verbal vomit came out of my mouth, and my voice was heard, and it felt great. Okay. So like I said, I enjoyed talking with both of you. I really appreciate you guys being a part of this 2021 Social Work Lobby Day. And obviously it's virtual now, but hopefully next year, like Tara said, in the next General Assembly, we'll be able to be back in person and, get actual change done and make things a little bit easier on us at the same time. Is there any final thoughts or anything that you guys would like to leave for the Kentucky social workers that will be watching this?
I would just like to thank you all for having us here today. It's a huge honor to be a part of this group and speak. And I just encourage you all to get involved. Like I said, whether it's at the state level or at the local level, your voices are needed. The people that you're serving need you to use your voice. And that's the thing, is that you may be the person that is actually speaking, but just keep in mind that you are speaking for the people that you're serving. And so one of the things that's important that is that oftentimes that we are the voice of the people in the community. And so I know that Jimmy talked about sometimes that it can be scary, but that's what I use, and I make sure that I keep in mind when I am going to into these rooms, is that oftentimes I'm speaking for people who don't have access, or who don't who can't come in and speak, or who may be afraid, or who don't have that access to do it. And so I just encourage you all to continue to be advocates, and just thank you all for your work.
Yeah, and I second everything that Katora says. Social workers are sometimes the most unappreciated folks, but are left with some of the hardest jobs. So for one, I just want to say thank you for what you all are doing. Thank you for coming into a professional that obviously we know you may not become a millionaire in or get all these acclaims, but your jobs are so important. They impact so many lives. And just to make that impact even greater, get involved in policy, speak up on whatever level. If you're in Frankfurt, come hang out with me and Katora and Jimmy. We'll just recruit you like we did Jimmy. You can be our best friend. That's how we act. And so this has been an honor, and thank you for having us so much.
All right. Thank you both very much. Guys, if you guys want to get involved in policy work and advocacy work, please feel free to reach out to me. We will definitely get out my email, as well as the Kentucky NASW webpage and all of the contact information that you need. And as well, feel free to contact the ACLU. I'm sure that they would absolutely love to hear from you. I appreciate you both being here, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.